very glad to welcome you to this gathering on digital approaches and faith formation.
So we are not talking about solutions at all in the first 20 minutes. I'm just going to continue to name the problems that we all suffer with in technology, and you'll just feel bad about yourself and your work when you leave. So, the Institute for Catholic Formation is in the Diocese of Bridgeport, and what I want to do is just go through all of these tabs with you. Everything I have can be found on the internet, and everything is free, everything can be shared, okay? All of it is a creation of a bishop who says, let's blow everything up and start all over again because what we've been doing for the last 50 years isn't working. Now, you have to be careful when you say that because some of the people in the room have actually been doing it for 50 years. And it hurts some feelings when he does that, especially when you say it's not working. But the reality is parents did exactly what we asked them to 50 years ago. They let the teaching fall to us as the experts. And we forgot to bring them along. In some cases, in some dioceses, in some parishes, we forgot to bring the parents along. So what we've been able to do in the Diocese of Bridgeport is to rebuild, reimagine. Our website, Formation Reimagined, starts with the premise that we can do better, that we have to do better. Not that everything's failing, though some of it is. Not that the DREs need to retire, though some of them do, and the bishop has a list. Every so often you go into a parish and he'll come out, no, that person, no. I'm like, how am I supposed to do that? Father, you need to fire that person. All right, so here we go. So Formation Reimagined, this is our website. We change the front every month, but basically we have an immediate call to action. What I want to talk about today in the first 20 minutes is just the resources that we've made available and we've created from a digital landscape. Again, you can link to it, you can steal them, do whatever you need to. The first one I want to mention is this one, Start with Sunday. So Start with Sunday is a call to action for all parents of preschool children to engage in a different way with the liturgy. We've animated the 3 years of Sunday readings with a digital designer who lives in Italy. She's animated all of the Sunday readings. Now, when she did this, she's the oldest of 5 children, and she did it and said, let me just make it available on YouTube. And Marilyn's not in the room, so I'm going to say this, and Paul's not in the room, so I'm going to say this. The USCCB told her to take it down because she doesn't have the rights to use the lectionary. So, okay, fine. Well, I can get the rights to use the lectionary because I work for a bishop who's part of that group, and we wrote a letter, and Mary was very lovely, and she gave us the rights, and we bought all the videos from her and said, now we want you to brand them, and we want you to do it this way, we want you to change this and this and this. So she's done an amazing job to do that. So what happens is every week this goes out. We have some of the readings, we have the reflections, you can watch it, you can listen to just the audio, and then we've got activities. So right now we're about 25,000 users on Start with Sunday. We have this in Spanish as well. We also will have it in Portuguese starting the first Sunday of Advent. And then next year we will launch more activities in partnership with some other publishers and some other folks. Because right now it's just kind of limited in our activities. But essentially anybody can subscribe to this. Anybody can get this email every Thursday. It's published on Mondays, but the email goes out on Thursday, because we weren't sending any other emails out on Thursday, so we thought that would work. The next project I want to, so that's startwithsunday.org. The next thing I want to talk about is, that, by the way, is part of a $1.5 million grant that we got from Lilly Foundation that will include Catechests of the Good Shepherd, formation for all of our parishes, as well as, if you know Bishop Caggiano, you're going to love this one, an animated series called Bishop Frank Teaches the Faith, which launches in Advent. And he's so excited that he can be animated because he says, I can be thin. I think he's thin already. I told him he could have a Jersey accent if he wants, but you never say that to a guy from Brooklyn. So, all right. So the first grant that we got from the Lilly Foundation, we did this. And Todd Kellogg is here with us on our at NCCL, so find him and talk to him about this. we partnered with our parishes to develop a program that actually accompanies families in the first 5 years of life. So we have partner families, and at this point we've got about 200 or so in several different parishes. And the partner family goes through formation so that they can accompany somebody from infant baptism through enrollment in faith formation. Because what we were finding is that kids were coming to faith formation at 5 and 6 years old and they didn't know anything. But to be fair, it wasn't their fault because mom and dad didn't know anything. And we know from all of our work that moms and dads lack the language to articulate the faith. It's not that they don't want to. It's not that they don't know the difference necessarily between sacrament of baptism and reconciliation. It's they don't know how to articulate it. They don't know how to say it. So what we do on this site, in addition to the partner families, is we give them all of these different ways that they can incorporate this into the daily lives, all right? Bath time, bedtime, which I stole from Amy McAtee, car time, leaving. We say the prayer, and we did this, we had 6 of us from Bridgeport. We say the Hail Mary as we're driving out of the driveway every Sunday going to Mass, whether we're going to school, whether we're going everywhere. And Bishop Casciano says, I assume if you're driving, they pray the entire way there, which is nice. Lots of great stuff about Generation Alpha, and then I want to talk to you about these milestones because it came up in the last thing. We worked with a team of folks to develop spiritual milestones at every stage of development. So what should a child know? We know from our doctors and our nurses what they should know developmentally, psychologically, when they should be walking, when they should be crawling, when to get concerned that the child hasn't said a word. So what we did was we partnered with experts to figure out what it was spiritually. What should they know at 5 years old? What should they know at 4? When could you start doing some of these? So again, all of these missionary milestones are all here. What should they know for sacrament of reconciliation, Eucharist, et cetera, et cetera. So again, all of those things are here. So again, that's First Witnesses. Newsletter goes out every Tuesday, Holiness at Home. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to link to the resources or just get the code and copy it outright, which would be a little rude. But the next thing I want to point out is this, Catholic Chat. We have some fun with AI. We know that AI is here. We know that AI is going to take all our job. No. You can get answers from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now, originally this one got us into trouble too because Catechism of the Catholic Church is copyrighted by the Bishops' Conference. But we were able to point out to the Bishops' Conference that there are plenty of places where the Catechism can be found on the internet, including the Vatican and including the USCCB's own site. So what we did was we trained this AI component to only look at the Catechism, all right? And you can get your answer as a child, as an adult, or as a scholar. So the answers are in more detail. The answers are geared towards a 7-year-old or a 15, 20-year-old, whatever. And again, so who wants to ask a question? Come on, don't be shy. We'll answer it as an adult. Well, okay, here, we'll do it as a child, and then we'll all understand. Ed, what's your question? He laughs.
Who made us?
Who made me? Oh, good Lord. What can you tell me about confirmation?
Oh.
It's not the question.
Theology, the sacrament in search of a theology. So ask your question on time. Okay, so here we go. It cites the Catechism, and you can actually turn this on or off so that it'll link directly to the Catechism. But what if I asked that same question, and I said I wanted to get it as a scholar? It's thinking? How much time is it taking out? Scholar, it has to go to the bookshelves. All right, so one of the 7 sacraments, definition, theological foundations, effect, right? So you've got a lot more information here than you would simply as a child or as an adult, all right? So that's Catholic.chat. We made that in partnership with the folks at Fiveable, who have been our partners in a lot of these things. So Back in 2017, Bishop Caggiano wanted to merge social media with the power of prayer. So if you take out your phones and you text the word pray to 55778, then every day at 3 o'clock, you will get a prayer from Bishop Caggiano. And so it's just, text the word pray to 55778. Now what's fascinating about this is there are people in this very room who save that 55778 as Bishop Caggiano. And then they will leave it on their desk. And their pastor will see that Bishop Caggiano is texting them every day at 3 o'clock. My youngest child, who's 16, going on 30, saves it as God. With a picture from the Sistine Chapel she wasn't supposed to take. So, I can't tell you the number of texts I get when the prayer is, this week the prayer was, for those who drive erratically, let us practice patience. And 10 different people texted and said, how did you know? Or if the prayer is, we pray for those who annoy us, I get emails from people that say, are you talking about me? Like, if you have to ask. So the Face of Prayer goes out every day to about 22,000 people all over the world. The next thing I want to show you is from the field. Now, from the field, as many of you know, my wife is Maureen Gross from the National Federation. I bribed her into giving me a slot on a hallway one year at NCCL, and we simply started videotaping people. And we're going to do that again in the next, probably at Exchange this year. But basically, what we did was we just started gathering 2-minute stories from people with their advice about ministry. The next one we're going to do is for parents. And there's some faces new and old in there, but we have 150 different videos where it's simply advice on raising children, advice on catechesis, advice on whatever. Everybody loves to give advice. All right? So the next one we'll do actually is with high school students. And the point of the high school students will be, if you want me to have faith at 17, do this at 7. If you want me to have faith at 15, do this at 5. So we'll launch that next year because I just think there's a great need, again, to not shame parents, but encourage parents. But every one of these videos is individual, so you could link to each one of those. You could, we do another one every year, or every week, I'm sorry, it goes out in our newsletter. The other thing that wasn't going to mention is this. We also have family movie night. This is actually one of our most popular pages. So we have about 250 movies. We put a new movie up every week. It does not include the movie. People email and say, I can't access the movie. No, we're not Netflix. But we do have this link here for Just Watch where you can see where you can get that movie streaming or where you can get that movie. But families love this because how many times, and this actually was rooted in the Donovan family theater, where Ed and many others watched the last episode of The West Wing back in 2007. But every week, Friday night, we gather for family movie night. And my youngest would yell if something came, is this gray? Because it was black and white, and she had no desire to see a black and white movie. So the next thing we've done is catechism.com. Catechism is a daily quiz. It's also an app, so you can just download it. It's available in English and Spanish, soon to be Portuguese. Can you solve today's catechism? Good Lord, I hope we can do this. Whom does Herod think Jesus is? John the Baptist, the Son of God, Elijah, or a normal prophet?
John the Baptist.
We're going to say John the Baptist, and if we're wrong, we're going to blame the master catechist in our midst here. You're correct. Yay! Good job, Ed. All right, so that's a new question every day. Now, we're going to AI-ify this. Those are actually questions that every one of our high school students came up with. There's a question bank in there of about 2,000 questions and the explanations, which was an assignment in partnership with our Catholic high schools. But starting in February or March, we're actually going to do it so that you can build your own quizzes. So you can build your quiz, it'll become the Catholic Kahoot. There'll be a code you can share in your classrooms with digital devices, and you'll be able to take a quiz, and then you'll be able to save the quiz. So there'll be a library of quizzes for confirmation, a library of quizzes for, saints or anything like that. All right, so catechism.com. Again, you can download that app or go there. And then I want to turn our attention the last 5 minutes to the learning platform that we were able to create in the Diocese of Bridgeport. It's now used by the Archdiocese of Newark, LA, Wichita, and about 10 other dioceses and several other national organizations. If you're part of NFCYM Connect, you'll notice the platform because they use it as well. So we use this to track, to teach, to form all of our Catholic school teachers, all of our catechists, all of our extraordinary ministers, all of our liturgy folks. So on this page, you'll see catechist formation. All right, the one is the bishop's initiative to renew the diocese. This is initial formation. So the bishop wants everybody at a baseline. The role and person of the catechist, catechesis, a moment of evangelization that Ella did for us, the directory for catechesis overview, and then we did a grade by grade. We got a group of experts to tell us what's a second grader like, what's a third grader, fourth grader. So you do that as an elective based on whatever grade you're teaching to essentially introduce you to what are you expecting? And these have to be updated every year because kids change, all right? And then we've got something there on EpiPens for your peanut allergy kids. But what you can do, and on this site as well, we've done 75 different videos explaining the directory for catechesis, right? So those videos are available. We've shared those with several of the dioceses. The nice thing about this platform is if your diocese or parish, I don't own the platform, the intellectual properties are with Fiveable. We made the deal with Fiveable, which is a developer in North and South Carolina. They're really all over the country, but we made the deal that we would split the cost with them, and then they would get to go out and sell it. We own a lot of the content. One of the things we didn't like about the other folks that are out there is if you read the fine print, if you upload content to their site, they own the content. And we did not want to lose our content. So what we've actually done, you'll see the Augustine Institute, you see Loyola Press, see Real True. We've actually licensed or been given content by tons of folks who want it in people's hands, but our parishes can't afford let it come up here. They can't afford a subscription to Formed, but we can do a license through Formed. But because Formed 3.0 is on the same platform, in the background, we just have to flick a switch and we share the content among everything. So baptism prep, there's a great course done by LA. So they flicked the switch and gave it to us. So anybody on the platform can share their content on that platform. So what we've done with the Augustine Institute, it won't come up, but we've got Reborn and Symbolon and some other ones on there. So then you can see, we can track all our catechists. We've got 1,028 catechists. They're all in this platform. I can message them, I can text them, I can email them, I can assign them work. If the bishop says, hey, listen, I've got an article I want every extraordinary minister of Holy Communion to read, then we can do it with one click, it's out the door, and we can even track who reads it. And what I love about it is it has that feature that when a catechist calls and says, I've done this 3 times. Well, actually, you spent 37 seconds on Tuesday morning doing this, so let's try this again. But they can see that as well, which is nice, so it's not like Big Brother. And we use this for marriage prep. We launched it, this platform we launched March 7th, 2020. Wow. So we were perfectly ready to pivot when we all had to sit at home. And I was very busy sitting at home doing all this stuff. So these are the channels in the platform, and the channels simply show you all of the resources that we have. And again, this Face of Prayer, when we launched the Face of Prayer text campaign, we also did 360 questions by teenagers, and then got clergy, religious, men and women all over the country to answer those questions. So those questions are part of this library, and again, available. We license The Chosen and use a Catholic commentary to do that. Sacramental preparation comes from, I believe some of that's Catholic Brain. We've got a lot of stuff for post-marriage. These are podcasts and stuff that folks in the diocese have done. Outside the Box has given us some really great stuff, and again, Sunday Mass packets. But the nice thing about the library is we have other libraries that are specific to individual places. So one parish has a library because they want everything in Portuguese. They do it. We have a finance library where everything is for financial folks. We've actually just launched a bookkeeping course because the bishop would like all of our bookkeepers to be certified bookkeepers so they can take a test and we can give them a certificate and everything else. The last thing I want to show you is not yet public and not stealable, which is why I will not show you the URL very fast. You'll notice that we've created an OCIA help desk. So with the help of AI, what we did was load it in with all sorts of scenarios. Every time I text or call Amy McEntee, she gives me a solution, I add it to the bit. Every document that we could get our hands on from around the country and loaded it in so that we could create an OCIA help desk. Now that's not something necessarily we want to share with the very wide public, but what we want to do is give our priests a place, and our deacons and our OCIA coordinators a place to go so that they can ask a question. Oh, by the way, I have somebody who's doing this and this and this, and how do I do it? Okay, well, we've got that scenario. You can look. We've got the rights. We've got everything that legally we could get from other places. So frequently asked questions and everything else. So once that becomes more public, then we'll share that on our site as well. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And good morning again. A couple of things about what we are doing in the Archdiocese of Newark. And so today what I think, I'm going to share in this little time that we have together is really, a little bit about the platform itself that we use for formation, a little bit about the initial objectives and how it got started a little, and just sort of how it's developed, right? What are the situations that we were really trying, the issues that we were really trying to address, and what we learned in that process of trying to address them, and so how that's changed and transformed and how we've had to pivot, okay? And then just some of our next steps, right? So what were the initial objectives? I think everybody can kind of probably relate to these situations, right? Trying to make quality content accessible, trying to reach more people because participation was very low. There really weren't people coming, taking advantage of the formation offerings that were given, communicate better what the catechist formation process was. So when I first arrived at the diocese, we had listening sessions and I surveyed parishes, and I was really surprised to find, I shouldn't have been surprised, but that people really didn't even understand what the process really was or what it entailed or what the requirements were. So how exactly do we kind of do all of that, right? And of course tracking, right? Because it was very labor intensive and kind of archaic, I hate to say, but it's true. So once you scroll down, this was this is kind of like the landing page for our learning site. And then if you scroll down, there are different categories, right? So catechist, teacher formation, evangelization, different offices in the Archdiocese, take care of those different areas. And it's all on here. And we are primarily, of course, catechist, teacher formation, and adult faith formation are the sections. God bless you. And so one of the first things that we set out to do was just to utilize, right, the advantage of the digital platform, the digital tool, the graphics, all of that kind of comes to try to outline and make very clear, very simple, very distilled, like what are the basic things that you need for catechist formation. And so this is, I'm not going to go in depth of what the process is, right? But basically we distilled it to what the directory tells us, right? Who I am, right? My relationship with God, why we are catechists, how we can be effective, right? And what we proclaim. And that is what, makes kind of puts together kind of is what is brought into our initial formation. And then we have ongoing, the expectation is that there's ongoing formation, from there, okay? But how do we do that in a way that, and I think finally we are, that first goal of communicating this process through, this has been one of the tools that has really helped us to be able to do that. So we are grateful for that. All right, and then this is kind of what it looks like when you're in there. Everybody has a dashboard, they can go in, just like, we already know there are other platforms out there that can do that. And then the courses are very simple to follow, very easy, to use. And this is one for our new PCLs, okay? So I guess this, we started using the learning management system in 2020. right around the time of the pandemic. And there were a couple of assumptions that we realized were a little problematic. So first, if we build it, they will come, right? So the PCLs have asked, right? Can we have digital online courses, right? So we're like, yes, let's do that. Let's get on that, because they asked us to. But just because they asked us to and we provided it doesn't necessarily mean they are going to be taking advantage of it. It's more surprised. We should have really been surprised. And then the other assumption is that the relational dimension of the formation was taking place at the local level. I don't know, it was we just assumed that, right? Like, okay, yeah, sure, we can provide this content, but that you still have something to do there at your local level, right? In terms of mentorship and in terms of relational ministry and, all right, so, and maybe they seemed obvious, but that was a little bit of a problem. So some of the temptations that I think are easy for us to fall into is, for us, we've done our part in providing what was asked for, right? We did what was needed. Like, we can be really proud of this because we've worked, we've spent time, we have this great process, and why are people not utilizing it? But we're finding that the PCLs are also tempted now to say, oh, that's great. And now we could just send our catechists to the online platform. We'll just send them to the online platform, right? Which is really, I think, I don't know how to kind of I think it's fueled by this culture of hurry and let's minimize it. And we hear so much about learning has to be bite-sized and small. And I'm not saying that's not true. It is, right? We do have to simplify, but I think that keeps pushing us, and we're feeling that pressure, keep it simple, make it less, make it shorter, it's accessible online, and then you can do it and you can check it off. And so it's almost like we're trying to find a way without saying we're trying to find a way, at least for us. Okay, I'm not around the fact that integrated formation, it requires commitment and investment. No matter what it looks like, there's no way we can really get around that. So now we're finding ourselves in a place where we kind of need to push back on that, right? A little bit. And I think we're grateful to the lessons that we're learning in synodality and in listening and in that movement of the Holy Spirit that requires time and presence and quiet. You just can't get past that, right? So, and holding the tension, right? Because the digital landscape, right? There is a sense of digital mission, right? We past are the days where we got to finally get with the program, right? I remember saying when COVID came and parishes were like, oh no, we don't have access to our classrooms, whatever will we do? And I was like, there's a little tiny part of me that's really happy that you don't have access to your classroom and that you might actually have to do some catechesis outside of your classroom. And part of that might actually mean you need to learn to use a digital tool. And that is exciting. So that, we have to dive in there, right? There is a mission to be had there. But at the same time, that's not the end of it, right? That mission is oriented because the end is real presence. It's sacramental life. It is relational, right? So, and I'm not so sure that over the last 5 years, we've been able to pull that back. I think we kind of ran with the digital, and now it's kind of oh great. Even in our parishes, just the Council of Priests just had a question for me the other day about what are the requirements for virtual faith formation in parishes? Because, our parish is resuming in-person sessions. I'm like, it's 2025. I'm like, okay, wow, I'm glad they're late than never, I guess. They're resuming in-person faith formation, but our neighbor parish is still online, and now the parents don't want to come because they can just do it online. And so there it is, right? And so how are we really using the digital platforms to ultimately meet the end goal is what we've really been wrestling with. Especially in the area of catechist formation, where we're really talking about the charisma, right, and sharing our faith story, right, and then how do we do that, right? So we've been really this is something that's been on our heart for a very long time, right, in terms of leadership formation, because there are just not as many leaders in catechesis, and so how are we inspiring people to step forward, and how are we forming our catechists and mentoring them, right? So So we're sort of like, you have to identify, there's a whole process, right? If we're gonna really, just in a session about the catechumenate, you know, and if it's the model, it's the model, right? So there's a sense of, you know, how are we identifying individuals? How are people listening themselves to a potential call to catechetical ministry? Are we inviting people to that intentionally? Are we igniting something within them, right? That they can listen to that spirit? And then do we continue to inspire them? How do we like immerse them? You know, no pun intended there with baptism, but like really immerse them, right? And how do we help them understand that they need to invest in this, but also how are we like investing in them, right? My daughter is a missionary with an organization, and she says that to me all the time. She's like, no, we just spent a lot of time investing on our host home family. And I'm like, investing on our home host family, you know? And so then we thought, okay, but how do we digitize this, right? Because the needs are still the needs. People still can't come to all the in-person. We have volunteers, we have busy folks who are working full time, right? So we still have those same issues. And then we realized, okay, I think little by little we're realizing now, it's not so much the question about how can we digitize it, but really what can we digitize and what can't we, right? Like what can we and what can't we? And so how do we really use it for mission and then bring it together, right? Because some things just are going to require relationship, like mentorship, right? And even if that is online, right, it still is personal interaction. It can't just all be asynchronous, like at 2 a.m. in my pajamas. I mean, even though I can be on Zoom in my pajamas, nobody really would know. But I'm just saying, right? And the proclamation of the kerygma, right? So again, I think some of this is also modeling, like we can't just be talking about digital platforms and telling our catechists, you know, listen, these Gen Zers, well now they're older, the Gen Alphas are coming in, and you know, we have to be able to use technology with them and utilize the tools for faith formation and enter into their mission territory, right? But if they don't see a value in it, and if they're not utilizing it and can't experience how it's been utilized to fuel their own relationship with the Lord, they're not going to be able really to transmit that. So rather than just kind of putting out that content, you know, so the first step was really to begin with something very personal, which was the catechist orientation course. That's why it's kind of like step one. And it's a short module. It is 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes. It can be adapted. So we do have parishes that are like, oh, can you do it? We have a 3-hour thing for our catechist, or we have 60 minutes with our catechist. Like, it can be adapted. But it is very relational. Gina Butler's our associate director for catechist formation. She's like put flesh on this and it's amazing. And it is aimed at initiating a conversation about the identity and inviting catechists into deeper relationship with Jesus and igniting that desire for more. So it is very charismatic. It's not so much like what to do when you get in the classroom. Okay, it's very charismatic. And so of course it started out like in person, because then you know, when we have to translate this into a digital format. But we are really excited that last year she did run this for over 1,000 of our Catholic school teachers. And so they experienced this because it is an experience, right? And now they are using the online resources so much more that they're kind of like, oh, you promised that you would have this course ready. And I'm like, yes, we did, but here's a flyer with maybe a new date because we're over, you know. So, but that's a good problem, I guess, to have, right? Because they are eager, right? So engagement has increased. They are eager to participate. So I feel like finally we're gaining traction. And yes, the catechist orientation course is going to be online, right? But then again, what are those features of it that really can't be sterile, you know? So, and then in parishes, there has been greater participation in subsequent courses. Like when they experience this, they're like, so what's the next thing? Which was really our hope, right? So they've, you know, so that's yeah. And then for formation for our parish catechetical leaders, this is the other big issue. We have a lot of part-time, even volunteer PCLs who are precisely the least available to come to formation, but are the ones who need the most level of support. So that's the piece, right? And so again, that was the sample course, one of the modules that I had showed, that I showed before on the slide. And we're just grateful that we've been able, like this year was the first year we're really full. We've done it in different kinds of ways, but now this year we finally formulated the course and built out the course. and we have 25 registered, which is it's a high. What I think is interesting is that we have about 5 longtime PCLs. First, I had never seen their faces, and secondly, so therefore they had not really been to formation because they couldn't, who are finally engaging. And so again, the question became, what's the content that can be digitized, and what are the experience that can be digitized, and then what are we doing in person? So we are gathering with them virtually, just very briefly, once a month, but there's a great desire for community there. Can we share our contact information? What parish? So finally they're feeling connected because they feel like they've been working, kind of laboring alone, right? And so that has been a really important thing. And of course there's an option to complete the online modules and all of it asynchronously, if that's the reality. But so the next step for us is schools and parishes really want to continue their formation at their local level, right? And so that's why the online platform. And this is not necessarily a new idea, but we all know that the leaders themselves lack the time and the training, right? They're barely surviving. So now when we say to them, it's the PCL's responsibility to form your catechists, they just don't know what to do with that. So creating facilitator guides and resources, right, that are very simple, but that, that we can show our PCLs, and dare I say, even folks at the Catholic schools, right, how to take the course that is online, right? But we're going to gather together to either go through it at a faculty meeting, or before our faith formation session or our next catechist meeting, whenever we do that, so they can use the online, the content, even the witness stories, all of the things that are included in that, but also have that relational component and just teaching our PCLs and the folks in our Catholic schools, how to really mentor and have those relationships. So that's kind of the next step for us, because again, it just keeps coming back to, we really want to do this at our local, and that's, I think, a call for not just comfort, in the sense that I don't want to drive to the pastoral center, right? Because people are coming to they are driving now to the pastoral center to do some stuff, but it's really this is our parish community, and this is where we're comfortable, and it's the both and, right? Sometimes we're called to step out, gather with others, right, at our major events, and we can be inspired by that. And sometimes we really want to be with our community and kind of journey together. So how do we do that? So hopefully those facilitator guides can provide options for them. So it can be hybrid, or they can just do it all gathered, but at least it's intentional, or they can let their teachers do it asynchronously, however they want to do that. And then, there are a couple of things. First of all of this has to be bilingual. At our Archdiocese in Newark, it's over 40% Spanish speaking. So we do have the catechist formation process also in Spanish, and we're developing, there's an institute now for pastoral lay leadership formation, and so we're working together to do that. And just again, kind of pulling in even our Spanish speakers to use, it's okay, this is my last one. Thank you. Just pulling in our Spanish speakers, that's almost a whole other area, right? Where they still prefer that in-person format. But the reality is there is a digital mission territory that we still have to enter into, right? So how are we forming them in that, right? And part of the way that we form them in that is by actually having them use the tools and help them grow to see the value in it, as opposed to maybe being afraid of it or what it will do to their child, because that's the perspective, right, that they're looking at it. So for that formation to be integrated, I remember a couple years ago, we were still doing in-person registration for the Spanish speakers, and there were a couple of people in our office that were like, they just won't register online. I'm like, well, they will if they can't register on paper. I'm like, and it's a disservice not to teach them and accompanying them on how to do that, right? So we just, had to kind of do that kind of formation, right? So again, it's that both and, right? And that's sort of, I think, where we've landed on our journey, where that pendulum swung from, let's just go digital because nobody's coming in person, and then to wait, this isn't working the way we thought, okay? So that's where we are. So thank you.
I'm going to do a more kind of a deep dive on one topic instead of kind of the breadth of what we offer digitally. I'm going to talk about our catechist certification program for a few minutes. So I'm going to jump into that. As I get set up here, I'm going to ask you, I just went to a great session before this on family formation, and the theme of listening came up. So just briefly, I'm going to ask you, think about an online course that you've taken, maybe in a college program, through a parish. What was a challenge you had in that course, maybe technically, or just taking an online course versus an in-person course? And think about something that you really enjoyed about that experience. Like, what was something really positive that maybe you got from that you couldn't maybe have gotten from an in-person course?
I think that one of the benefits is that you can be in class with people that you would never come into contact with in your ordinary perspective. So it really challenges your perspective. I've been taking some classes, and people in my class are from, they're missionaries in Africa, and we're working together on small groups, So I get to see like the whole universal church in action.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're talking our drive up from Richmond, about 2.5 hour drive yesterday from our team from Richmond. We came up and we're talking about just how we take for granted now, like the technology we have. How just talking to someone on a screen used to be like, oh, that was Star Trek, or I watched some old Star Trek movies recently, and it just like, wow, back then it was like they were talking to each other on screens, and like we never imagined that. I'm showing my Gen X age, speaking of Gen X. Or like the Jetsons, and now it's just, we're used to that. It's almost annoying now. We're like, oh, I don't want to FaceTime. I think I'd rather just text. We have this amazing technology, but what an incredible gift and an opportunity to, like we're talking about, reach people around the world, and for formation. And I think AI, Patrick mentioned a little bit about using AI, and that's something I would love to learn more about, because I definitely think that's the future. If not a year from now, a week from now, things are changing rapidly with AI. So if we could get, as a church, ahead of that and get some folks trained and share our resources for AI, I think that's definitely going to be something that, if we can learn how to use that for the good, as we saw some examples of already, it'll be an amazing tool we can use. So let me go through this briefly again. This is our Pathways Delivered, we call it, certification program. And a little bit of background on Pathways Delivered. It started before COVID. I've been in my position a little over a year now, so I'm kind of in a learning phase myself, about our history and helping step in and continue the process of developing this technology and these courses. I have a background in higher education, doing some online teaching as well, and so it's kind of a crossover for me of doing parish ministry, but also educational ministry, and merging those two. So as I said, I'm kind of developing and learning what's come before me and in the process of growing. So this is, as I said, it started as a classroom format, and sessions were then translated into an online course format. So we're kind of in the process of even updating some courses now to make them to fit the online format even a little bit better than they were, because we offered training sessions at our diocese, at our pastoral center, but also went out to parishes and did the certification program. And then we transitioned, like just probably toward the tail end of COVID, 2022, built these online courses for this program. Just briefly, what technology company is behind Pathways Delivered? We use a company, Catholic Faith Delivered, which is Catholic Faith Technologies. And they just merged recently with a company called Fax. And I don't know all the details, like, if you're interested in any of this, I'm happy to kind of share what we have, and I won't do a deep dive on that. But Fax joined with Catholic Faith Delivered, and so they offer just various services from online products to learning management systems, faith formation learning courses, an online giving tool, professional website services. So they can help build the course for you. They provide a platform where you can build a course. So what I've done is, it's a pretty user-friendly course builder. So I use their platform to build courses. I could get videos from people teaching and put those in, images, text, and put the course together in the platform. But I could also submit all that to one of their techs and they can build it for us. It's kind of the trade-off of time versus the time it takes for them to do it, but they might do a little bit better if they know more of some of the behind the scenes, but then we can also probably build it and get it up a little faster just based on their timelines. So what do we offer? So our training program has 3 tiers, and our tier 1 of our catechist training is for parish catechists and school religion teachers. And they all are required to take these 3 courses in tier 1. And we ask them to complete that in their first year of service. And they are vocation of the catechist, Catholic approach to scripture, a Catholic tradition. And vocation just covers the role, the vocation that they're calling. The Catholic approach to scripture goes into a little bit about how we interpret scripture, the background of that, maybe our differences with the Protestant canon of scripture, and so on. And then Catholic tradition goes into sharing the faith gone before us, what is the magisterium, some of those basics about the authority of the church, and where and those teachings come from. Then we move to tier 2, and this is for catechists with at least 1 year of experience that are looking to enhance their teaching skills for specific age groups or community settings. So after they do this kind of overview in tier 1 that everyone takes, they can select a tier 2 course that's more of a deep dive into the methods of their specific demographic that they might minister to. So we have a children's formation course that's for preschool to 5th grade, including children's liturgy and sacramental preparation. So volunteers, leaders in those areas can take that. Methods in youth formation. So this is for middle and high school youth ministry, confirmation, small group leaders. That would be for them. Methods in adult formation, Bible study group leaders, adult faith sharing groups, OCIA, prayer groups. And then methods in family formation. So this would be whole family catechesis, parent-child programs, retreats. So volunteers involved with that. So those method courses, the way they're designed is each one begins with a similar 3-part structure that's similar to all of them. And then for the last part of the course, it really kind of digs, like I said, deeper into those areas for their ministry on whether it's adult formation or kids formation. And the final tier, tier 3, this is for more experienced catechists who have spent the last 2 years or so in the classroom. They might be emerging leaders in the parish or the school. As I mentioned, our school teachers also do this program as well. So we're trying to offer more and more courses in tier 3 to supplement what they do as well in the classroom. So tier 3 offers ongoing formation tracks from a dynamic library of materials, helping veteran catechists deepen their understanding and leadership skills. Some examples of that, we just completed, we had an in-person workshop at our diocese a little over a year ago. We had some videos of her presentation on avoiding ministry burnout. And so I kind of took that material, the videos we had, the audio, and as I said, I have a platform where I can create text and images and videos. So I edited the video and put it in segments and made an online class based on a workshop, which took a little time to do. It was kind of a learning curve for me because I'm not necessarily a tech expert, but I think we've described Gen X as we know, what was it? You said so well last night about kind of knowing what we know well and then trying to learn, but yeah, something to that effect. So I kind of can navigate the tech I have, but then if something's user-friendly in a platform, I can kind of jump in and try to learn that as well. So like I said, this year's kind of been a learning experience of doing that. So wedding ministry burnout, so that's an example of where we took an in-person workshop, made it an online class that anybody can take. And I just finished a course on the 4 Marian dogmas. That's another area where we're trying to dig a little deeper into specific Catholic topics, because in our diocese we've had some feedback of, especially maybe Hispanic groups we've had feedback from that listen to a lot of evangelical teachers still online or on YouTube, and sometimes struggle with going through that and getting good Catholic doctrine and kind of weeding through those videos. So we're like, let's focus on a few like very specific Catholic topics. So the 4 Marian dogmas is where we started. That is a course that I didn't get a lot of extra videos filming anybody. I found YouTube videos that already existed. Father Mike Schmidt's, Catholic Answers, just things that are available. So in a way, the course is curated material, right? I took videos that exist in they're public domain, like I can put them in my course. And I actually use, speaking of AI, ChatGPT to help with some outlining and resource ideas. ChatGPT is probably all have opinions on that, some of you. I would say it's a very good tool for outlining, for ideas for maybe a structure of a course, like structure a course on this topic and create an outline of some class sessions. And then when you ask for references, it'll give you some references as well. But the thing with ChatGPT is you really need to check your sources. It'll give you a lot of wrong sources, wrong quotes. And so a really good tool for organization, I would say, to help you kind of get your a structure there, like the bare bones. But then when it starts to go a little bit deeper, really got to check its work because it cheats. And when you call it on it, the response from ChatGPT I was like, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I didn't see that the first time. Thank you for clarifying. Why didn't you see it the first time? So again, it's fun getting to know AI, but we have to just be careful with how we use it and know its strengths and its weaknesses and how to best use it right now. And it's going to keep changing. I mean, all those texts are going to get better. So real briefly, how are we growing in our Pathways Delivered program? Looking to the future, we have Christy Barton is our bilingual associate director in our office for Christian formation. We're so blessed to have her. She kind of is the Spanish equivalent of what I'm doing, so we work together on courses now, and she'll create an equivalent Spanish course. And we're so blessed right now, we have Tier 1. Those 3 classes I talked about are all in Spanish and English. Tier 2, we just completed this last year. All those methods courses about the various demographics and age groups are now in Spanish. So Tier 1 and Tier 2 are complete. And we're looking toward those Tier 3 courses where we have supplemental courses, like I said, on various topics. We're looking to expand into Bible studies, Catholic doctrines, as I mentioned. Classroom helps. I've thought of developing a course on children's liturgy of the Word, because we get a lot of questions sometimes about that in our office of how do you do that? What's best practice? What does that look like? For those that are doing it, they might have questions or how to do it better. There might be people that are just getting started. So maybe courses like that, or helping classroom teacher model catechists that have a group of kids that aren't career teachers. How can we best help them if they're just stepping in with their Loyola Press Catechist Leader Guide and reading the prompts? God bless them, that they're there. They do a great job, and we encourage that and hope that they use that. But how can we help them, right? To help them in the classroom. And classroom management usually comes up, things like that, as you all know. How do you deal with discipline? And so those are all kind of Tier 3 course ideas of just little courses that a catechist could take that would help them in some of those really specific ministry areas. Thank you.